Worked.
Perfect. Somehow we figured out the labyrinth that is Zoom. Well, thank you. And for everybody listening, welcome back to Recruiting You. I'm actually really excited to have our guest on today. And I think, as always, before we dive into the introductions, the content that we have for you all, we want to start off these introductions with a interesting, dumb, however you want to look at it, fun fact. So Maureen, I don't know if you knew this. I actually looked it up today in the spirit of having this conversation with you, but the first bank in the US to ever issue a credit card, or like the first traces of a credit card, actually was the Flatbush National Bank of Brooklyn in 1946. So not sure if you knew that.
I know that. It's hard to believe that there were no credit cards before 1946. It seems like what was life before cell phones. We can't even imagine, right?
Yeah, seriously, those are like the dark ages on our end. Yeah, I think it was like a program called the Charge It or something. Anyways, I went down a big rabbit hole. Yeah.
Went down that rabbit hole.
Well, thank you, Rashad, for giving that little fun facts there. So Maureen, what is something that your colleagues don't know about you?
Gosh, I don't know. Let's see. There's probably a lot of things that they don't know about me, but I'm pretty open with my team, so they may struggle to think of something that I haven't told them yet. But I guess, I guess I would say this. Maybe it's something that they know a little bit about me, because they know one of my passions is skiing. I'm a big skier, have been since I was a very young child. I competitively skied in both high school and college. And I think the thing that my team finds really funny about that is that, there's a couple of things about competitive ski racing. I mean, obviously there's athleticism, but there's also a degree of completely out of control risk-taking. Not risk-taking. You kind of have to be an out of control risk taker if you're going to competitively downhill ski. And my team would laugh at that, because I don't think that they would see me as somebody who likes to be out of control at all. Because I am seen more as a control freak than one who likes to be out of control. So I think that would just be something interesting. It's kind of a contrast of kind of who they see in me and say, wow, you really did that at some point in your life. But I am proud to say that during all of that in my young age, I never broke a bone in my body doing that or anything else in my athletic career until this past New Year's Eve. And I broke my ankle skiing.
Oh, no.
And I cannot admit that I was doing anything crazy, like, skiing in the trees. I literally was coming to a stop and fell over and broke my ankle.
Oh, no.
Yeah, talk about a streak that just got broken. Yikes. Well, I don't know if I'm there with you or I can empathize, but I got a bruise once from ice skating and I've never been back since. So I save all the risk taking to you.
Got it.
So, yeah, and I think, getting into kind of the thick of the content here, as our listeners know, we like to kind of play out this fictitious scenario. And for today, I think this is a really interesting topic, because it's something that I've been hearing often as far as how leaders are thinking about how to lead during this craziness at the moment. So if you will, sort of, going along this hypothetical scenario where I'm the CHRO of my company. And my company right now has placed this hiring freeze, and we have no idea what our workforce planning is going to look like in the coming months. But there's that big caveat. I do know that we're going to have some openings for some recent college graduates coming up in the fall. But in the meantime, I really have no idea how I can lead my HR team to help them plan when things are a little bit slow at the moment. So I guess as a leader, what do you think my recruiters should be doing right now to get themselves ready to pipeline that talent? And for me personally, how should I be communicating that to my team to get that buy-in?
Yeah, well, listen, that's a great situation and not hypothetical at all, I don't think. I think there are probably a lot of, CHROs or heads of recruitment that are sitting out there right now going, oh, geez, what do we do? And I would say my team is absolutely square in that space right now. And we've tried to do a couple of things. My first advice to people would be, take a moment and just step back. Don't panic. Don't panic that, oh my gosh, we're going to lose all this time. How are we going to make sure we're still relevant in the market? You know, how am I going to talk to all of these candidates that, you know, that I might be interested in hiring if everything's being done virtually or remotely? Will we be able to sell the organization in the same way? Just don't panic about it. Take a step back and really use this time to evaluate what you have in place. You know, I was having a conversation last week with some of my team members and saying, look, you know, we barely have time to stop and think. We barely have time to get to the next meeting. We barely have time to have one project concluded and celebrate its success before we have to move on to the next. So take a little bit of this downtime that some areas have in the organization, and it's not all, but it's probably true in the recruitment space right now. Take that downtime and step back and evaluate what you've got. So like internally, I would say, take a look at your processes. How are you approaching, you know, your junior candidates now, and whether that's on campus or through your other channels where you're attracting recent graduates? How does that process look right now? Map it out. Are there ways that you can make it more efficient for your organization? Are there ways that you could make it a better experience for the candidate? Because I think there's an opportunity to really look internally at what you're doing right now and start to do some research. Start to put yourself out there, benchmark against other organizations. Again, often when we're in our BAU modes, we're internal, right? We're focused on just what we're doing in our organization, and we don't often enough look outside. Take that opportunity right now to do a bit of that research. And I would also say take this opportunity right now to start thinking about how you do change those processes for the virtual environment. And again, many organizations are living that right now because, you know, we, in a matter of, I will say for us, it was literally a matter of 7 days. It's changed from doing things BAU to more than 50% of our workforce being at home, working remotely, things starting to shut down all around us. And we still had candidates in the pipeline then. So we had to immediately figure out, okay, well, we're not just stopping this. How do we wrap up the last interviews via Zoom? How do we start to think about how we're going to onboard these folks? Because they're not going to show up on day one in the traditional manner and shake the hand of their manager and be, you know, brought to their work area and given their laptop. All of that had to now be done differently. So start planning for that now, particularly if you're in that situation where you've got some of that downtime.
And that's really interesting, right? Because I love that perspective, because something I hear often is because there's so much unknown and because there's so much chaos, however you want to define that, there isn't much happening, right? Analysis process, and you're stopped by fear. And you're saying, okay, this is the first time in probably a really long time, or maybe the first time ever, that you have the time and the capacity to look at things that may be a little bit inefficient or things that may be a little bit slowed down. So, and something that you mentioned, benchmarking against other organizations, where my company may not be the same as yours, or yours may not be the same as mine. So what would your advice be to folks to look at other organizations when it comes to benchmarking? Like, I can go to SHRM and all these different things, but how do I make it applicable to me?
Yeah. Well, I think you could do, I think there are two things you can do. One, I am a huge proponent in encouraging other, you know, CHROs or even heads of like recruitment departments. You have a network of your peers out there. Go find it, because they become your best allies, your best information sources, you know, your best shoulder to cry on when you're having a crisis in your organization and you're like, have you ever dealt with this? I mean, use those networks because they're absolutely out there for our HR community. And they are often the best source of information. And, you know, SHRM is a resource to all of those people. So the beauty is you're getting the benefit of that great organization from an HR perspective, and then you get to understand how it's been applied in other organizations. And that's a huge resource. We've been tapping into that as a community of HR professionals just in the last 8 weeks to help each other, you know, manage through the crisis. You know, I would also say, you know, you can do a lot of work out there in terms of talking to some folks who have recently joined your organization to kind of know what they went through in the process. I mean, that's another key thing I think advice to the HR organization is use the networks you already have. So for example, we bring on 900 graduates each year into our global graduate induction program. You know, these are graduates who are passionate about joining the organization, and they want to contribute and get involved in ways outside of just what their day job is. So tap back into your junior staff that you already have. You've probably got lots of people that have joined in the last couple of years, particularly those that were recent grads. Go back in and tap into them. Hey, tell me again about your experience. We've got an opportunity right now to look at how we're doing things. Tell us what some of the things would be that we should change. How could we approach this differently? So, you know, organizations have many, many networks that we don't tap into enough. So that's a strong recommendation I have, is tap into that network. And I would also say, you know, be the first to show back up on the doorstep at a university when a lot of other organizations right now might kind of be retreating back because they're dealing with a lot of other things they need to manage. Be the first one on the doorstep, just because you may not be actively engaged in your pipeline management right now. Maybe you just finished that. You've got a group that's ready to start and you're gearing up for what your next round is going to be. Be the first one to show back up, because you can actually engage an audience of prospective candidates before the process begins. Take this opportunity right now to do more information sessions, because guess what? You might be doing them when everybody else isn't. So now I'm giving my trade secrets on how we approach it, but I'm sharing it a little bit. You know, be the one out there that's talking to students more right now when a lot of other organizations, again, have retreated back and aren't doing that. Because you can probably give a lot back to the institution who is trying to figure out, you know, how are they getting this information in the hands of their students as well that are out there and getting ready to look in the job market. You could be there running information sessions. You could be there asking them, you know, other things that they're looking for from organizations to give to their students. So you could be one of the first ones to show back up.
When everybody zigs, you zag. I love it. Yeah. And thank you for the trade secrets, and for free nonetheless. I'm taking notes as we speak. So then last question for me, right? Because I think there's lots of valuable stuff here, and I'll kind of synthesize this, but something that came to mind is, let's now say the roles were reversed and Alexis rose up the ranks, and, you know, you had just, I don't know, you moved to another organization's Maureen, and you are starting off as the initial campus recruiter or one of the recruiters that's on the front line, and you are now reporting to Alexis, who's the CHRO. And something that you figured out is just really a lot of processes that could be refined, that could be better, and you collected all this information, but Alexis is really far removed from the organization. And she's making so many decisions. She has, you know, it's hard for her to be in the trenches. So how would you kind of collect all that feedback and say, okay, this is where we could be better, and then somehow communicate that to Alexis internally? Like, what would your recommendation to be for someone that's on the front lines to communicate the inefficiencies in the process to a CHRO or a C-suite executive to move the needle forward?
Yeah. And I can tell you that most CHROs are dying for the person who's going to do that, to bust through their door and say, I've got information that I want you to have, because I likely know that otherwise you wouldn't have it if somebody didn't put it in front of you. So first of all, just be that bold person who does that. I think secondly, though, you know, do your homework, right? It sounds like, you know, you're already saying, hey, yeah, I'm doing my homework. I've been out there. I've seen the inefficiencies. Try and understand why. Like, why do these inefficiencies exist? Is it just because we've done it that way for a long time and we haven't changed? Is there a different barrier in the organization that might be creating it? So do a little bit of that homework on the front end, and then just get your thoughts organized in a way where you maybe tackle two things. I always say to people, you know what, my to-do list, it often goes longer than one page. And you know what happens at the end of the day? I get really frustrated because I only got through the top two. So shorten your to-do list. Really prioritize the things, because once you get through the door, once I get through the door and I'm in front of Alexis, and she now sees the thought that I've put into what I've looked at, why I think it's an issue, and how I can improve it, she's going to ask you to bring back two more. I guarantee it. But start with the two, because you know time is valuable. You get in the door, you've given the thought to the prioritization, and then keep the other stuff that you saw in your back pocket for the next time, because I guarantee that the door will be opened again.
That's amazing, and also a valuable way for that person to remain a valuable part of your network internally, because now you're seen as a trusted advisor. So to quickly kind of wrap up, right, the idea of RecruitingU is that we're short, sweet, and straight to the point. So I think a couple of things, because it seems like in this hypothetical scenario, we've got lots of work to do, because now is the best time to do so, is first and foremost recognize that it's okay to step back and don't panic. This is the time to evaluate the processes and internally look at, okay, how are we doing things right now? Why are we doing things right now? And something as like a subcategory that I love that you said is tapping into your own networks when you benchmark against other organizations. So your own connections, things like that, because it often goes neglected. But the second thing too is talking to the most recent hires about their process to see where the bottlenecks were and why that exists. I love that point actually. And then as far as if you are the person that finds these inefficiencies and you want to bring that up to your leaders, first, recognize that leaders are craving people to bring that information to you. So for anybody listening, I think that's kind of that subtle point there. But the second thing is when you think about all the inefficiencies that you do find, recognizing that anybody that is in that executive seat has a to-do list that's longer than a page, focusing on 1 to 2 things and asking why, doing that homework, keep other things in the back pocket and really prioritize. So that kind of feel like sums it up. Anything you think I might have missed there that you'd like to add?
You know, I just think right now the best advice for organizations is, you know, this is unprecedented times. Much of it is tragic in nature, but there's a lot that we can learn, not only as humans by working in different ways together, but there's an opportunity to not think that everything that we do has to stop completely. It may need to change. And this could be sort of a rebirth in a lot of processes and experiences, particularly I think in the recruitment space for candidates, that is going to be great. Because think about the accessibility and the different way that we now are far more comfortable talking with one another. It's just going to change the dynamic of how we as organizations, I think, show up in the recruitment space, and particularly on college and university campuses. But it's such an exciting thing. So like, just take advantage of it and be a part of it. If there's something that we can take away from this unprecedented time that I know we want to put behind us and say, gosh, can we just forget about it? I think there's been a lot of great things that have been coming out of it that we should take advantage of.
Love it. Well, the pen dropping was my metaphorical mic drop, if you will. That was awesome.
Well, yes, thank you so much. And I wanted to add something as well. I also was taking a lot of notes, so I appreciate all of your feedback as well. So thank you.
You're welcome, guys. You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, that about just kind of wraps it up for us. Thank you to everybody for listening. Yes, we do have tons of work to do. Now is the time to do it. And why stop? It's the best time to do so. So this is exciting. Thank you, Maureen. And we'll kind of let you go from here.